Cape Town. Once again, Lester Kivett, my colleague, joins us. And I think, Lester, again, we'll get more clarity now from some of the opposition members of Parliament that were in that briefing just a short time ago.
That's right, Jeremy. A frenetic last few hours here in Parliament, with firstly the ANC announcing that it will participate in a motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma. All parties in the Chief Whips Forum agreed that the ANC will amend the EFF's motion, and now we've just had a briefing by the Parliament's Programming Committee setting out the time frame for the next few days. Now let's get that opposition Riaz. John Steenhuisen of the Democratic Alliance. Mr. Steenhuisen, it seemed from what we're hearing here on the floor of this committee room, all parties unified, whether it be the ANC, EFF or the Democratic Alliance, unified that this motion will go ahead and that President Jacob Zuma must be removed as head of state tomorrow.
That's correct. I think there's been good cross-party cooperation, and finally we've been taken into the confidence of what the ruling party were thinking, and we're delighted that the motion has been moved forward. As you know, we've been calling all week for this motion to be fast-tracked. I think that all parties are united in wanting to remove President Zuma and to start writing a new chapter. We're delighted particularly because it's been done in the right place. Parliament elects presidents, Parliament must remove presidents, and so the fact that it's going to be taking place in Parliament now, I think, is correct.
The fact that after this we immediately will have, it looks like we'll have a State of the Nation address, but firstly what happens is if President Jacob Zuma is removed by a motion of no confidence, the entire cabinet, including the Deputy President, needs to be removed. It looks like Cyril Ramaphosa will be then elected President. So much happening before we have a very important budget speech next week. Could this all have been done differently? There are constitutional implications. Who does Cyril Ramaphosa then appoint as finance minister? Will it be Malusi Gigaba doing the budget speech, or will it be a new person coming in fresh to deliver that all-important budget announcement?
Well, I think it's up to the president, whoever it may be, and I think we mustn't be presumptuous about who it's going to be. There's a process in Parliament to elect a president, and there will be an election. I think that whoever the president appoints as his finance minister will come to Parliament to deliver that budget. It's Parliament's responsibility to program the tabling of the budget. That's done. It's taking place next Wednesday, and I'm very glad that there's been cross-party support that date has not moved. I think out of all the uncertainty, it's been the one bit of certainty that we've all been able to cling to, and I think it's right for both our economy and our country that continues. Who he appoints is going to be up to the president. It's his prerogative, and I would sincerely hope that we see a change. I think the current finance minister is completely compromised. I think that the state capture issue is starting to catch up with him, but nonetheless, a budget must be tabled, and we look forward to engaging with that budget next week.
We have a conveyor line going. I'm going to ask John Steenhuisen to step out a shot, and the IFP's Naren Singh to step in his place. Mr. Singh, just what an unprecedented few days we are about to embark on as South Africans. Many people at home still confused about what is exactly going on. Is it an EFF motion? Is it an ANC motion? From a chief whip sitting in that Chief Whips Forum meeting a few hours ago, what was discussed? And it seems that all intents and purposes looked like it was a fruitful and constructive conversation, using a parlance that has been used over the last few days.
Well, certainly, Lester, this is historic development for South Africa since the dawn of democracy in 1994. And I think what is pleasing is that as chief whips of all parties and representatives, we are ad idem on the objective. And the objective is to remove President Zuma. Who brings the motion, what amendments are made to the motion in terms of the nitty-gritty is not something that we are focusing on now. The main objective is we are exercising our rights in terms of the Constitution, Section 1022, to vote on a motion of no confidence. But I'm pretty sure that the EFF and the ANC in particular will find each other, as they've promised to do, in terms of the actual wording and the additions to the motion.
According to the Constitution, it says that once a motion of no confidence is adopted, the president is then expected to resign. What if the president does not resign, or once that vote is read out in the National Assembly? Is that it for the president?
Well, that is it. That is it. The die is cast, because Parliament is separate from the executive, and Parliament decides on who the president should be or should not be. And if we move that President Zuma should not be the president, that's it. And his entire cabinet collapses with him. And there's a vacancy that's created in the office of the presidency.
I'm going to ask you to step out of the way and ask the NFP's Moses Kubisa to step in. Prof. Kubisa, after last year's vote of no confidence that was not passed in the National Assembly, did you think that we would be back at this point so quickly with all political parties in Parliament in support of this motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma?
Well, we find solace in the fact that all parties have agreed unanimously that President Zuma must be voted out of office, invoking Section 102.2 of the Constitution. And there's been a myriad and a plethora of issues, and Nkandla, corruption, state capture, and the confluence of all these issues brought us into this fact. And we're here today, and here we are hastening. It's a sign of ineptitude and lack of leadership that has led us here. We are vindicated as the National Freedom Party. It started in Pretoria, Luthuli House, and it will be concluded here in Parliament. At least our people have been languishing in anxiety. We'll have to come out right now because Parliament is now doing its work. We'll vote the president out, and we have no choice. We've got to do our oversight as Parliament.
With all this going on, we can't lose fact that we are just a few months, just over a year away from a general elections. Is this a temporary truce between political parties, or is this also a mechanism for opposition parties to go to the electorate and say, we help get rid of President Jacob Zuma? What is happening behind the scenes, particularly with opposition parties? I
don't think it's a truce. I don't think it is done out of expediency, but political parties are exercising their constitutional right to ensure that we bring calm and certainty to the country as a whole by invoking the constitution of our country, Section 102. I think we'll have to be responsible enough as parties and agree on matters that have to do with our constitution and exercise our responsibility together as Parliament.
Moses Kubisa there is the Chief Whip of the NFPA in Parliament. I'm sure the word unprecedented is going to be used several times here at Parliament, especially since tomorrow we have that no confidence vote in the National Assembly, barring the fact if President Jacob Zuma resigns between now and then. But tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m, political parties will gather in the National Assembly to bring forward that motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma. As I said, unprecedented times in South Africa's history.
How many times we've heard that word unprecedented and postponed as well. Lester Kibbet, thank you very much indeed.